This is Eitan Erkowitz at the Peterson Institute for International Economics. Joined with me is Fred Bergsten, Director Emeritus and Senior Fellow here at the Institute. Thank you for joining me, Fred.
Glad to do it.
So President Trump said that he would label China a currency manipulator, but he seems to have backed off from that. The Wall Street Journal is now reporting that President Trump is going to be combating currency manipulators through another method. So why did he back off?
President Trump backed off because he realized that China was no longer a currency manipulator. For over 2 years now, China has not been intervening to keep its currency weak against the dollar, as they had done for much of the previous decade. They are, in fact, on the other side of the market. China has been intervening heavily to keep its currency from getting weaker and to keep the dollar from getting stronger. What that does is improve the U.S. competitive position. So President Trump, upon taking office, realized the reality that the Chinese are now actually helping out in achieving his goal of limiting U.S. trade deficits. He therefore wisely has chosen, at least so far, not to label them as a currency manipulator.
So they've said that they're going to have the Commerce Secretary label currency manipulators in the future as an unfair subsidy. So what does that mean?
What the administration is apparently planning to do is to treat currencies of other countries that are undervalued as a result of manipulation by their countries as export subsidies. Now, we have standard rules that apply to combating export subsidies by other countries. Tax subsidies, credit subsidies, all kinds of subsidies. In economic terms, undervalued currencies are very much a subsidy, just like those other forms. And if countries maneuver to undervalue their currencies through manipulation, then we should, in fact, label them as subsidies and put on countervailing duties against them. That's the basic idea. The question is whether U.S. law and international trade law permit countervailing duties in that circumstance. There is big debate among lawyers on both the domestic front and the international front. So the idea that apparently is coming forward, while I support it and think it's a good idea, will be subject to a lot of controversy and legal debate.
So which international organizations right now, or domestic organizations, are in charge of handling the issue of currency manipulation, and which would handle this if you were to label this as an unfair subsidy?
Currency manipulation within the U.S. is now handled by the Treasury Department. They are mandated by the Congress to put out reports twice a year indicating which foreign countries are manipulating. The law that was passed just about a year ago actually specifies specific criteria against which to judge if a country is manipulating in that way. In its latest report, Treasury, rightly in my view, indicated that 5 countries meet 2 of the 3 criteria. None meets all 3, so none were indicted. The question is whether under this new approach of using countervailing duties against manipulation, the authority to determine currency undervaluation, currency manipulation, would rest continually with the Treasury Department or pass to the Commerce Department, which implements countervailing duties. That sets up a huge turf fight within the administration. To my knowledge, it's not yet clear how that would be handled. Congress might want to weigh in, as it has 2 or 3 times in the past with legislation on this issue, and so we'll just have to see. But that will be a major question. We can count on the fact that Treasury will fight vigorously to avoid letting Commerce or anybody else invade its turf by determining whether a foreign currency is undervalued.
Interesting. So you and Joe Gagnon came out with a paper a few years ago arguing for a similar policy to what the Trump administration is now expected to put forward. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, Joe Gagnon and I, in the first paper we wrote jointly on this topic 4 years ago, did propose exactly what's being contemplated as one of a series of steps to deal with the rather major problem of currency manipulation. Currency manipulation, incidentally, as I said about China earlier, is now in remission among most countries. But it could easily come back, and it's still important to put policies in place to deter it. Joe and I proposed the countervailing duty approach as one of a series of measures to deal with the issue. The countervailing duty approach, as reportedly now considered by the administration, is actually the most modest step in that arsenal of measures. The reason is that countervailing duties only apply to a very tiny percentage of U.S. imports. We now have imports that total about $2.5 trillion. Only about $40 billion are covered by countervailing duties. For that to apply, a company or an industry has to come in, demonstrate that the foreign currency is manipulated, demonstrate that they are injured by that practice, which is not so easy since our economy is now at full employment doing reasonably well. So I would not expect a whole lot of business to come in through this route. At the same time, it is a clear warning shot across the bow of the countries who manipulate their currencies to keep them undervalued. So it's a useful first step, I would say, as a deterrent, and it could have wide-ranging effect on China or anybody else who contemplated going back to currency manipulation again in the future.
Thank you, Fred.